Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sons Show. That's at the Loyal Sons on all of your social medias. Follow us here and follow us there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. The Loyal Sons Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix. It is a very special day today. It is the 2024 Pitt Panthers season preview, and we are joined once again, as is tradition, by a very special guest. Chris Peak of Panther-Lair.com has joined us today to preview your Pitt Panthers. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm great, guys. Did you know that somebody has the Capel Faithful Twitter account now? You're
What?
at, you know how it used to be at Capel Faithful?
Yeah.
If you click on it, it's someone who's named themselves Apple, and they have no followers, and they're not following anyone. They haven't retweeted or tweeted anything, but there's at Capel Faithful is an occupied Twitter account. They joined in November of 2021. Are you aware of this? Did you know this?
No, but I have a feeling we're going to be kicking ourselves when they make that Final Four run this year, and we wish we could have converted back, and it's taken out from under us.
You didn't wish you could have converted back like this past offseason?
It was considered.
It was, yeah.
We went from football only and not caring about basketball to completely the other end of the spectrum. Just kidding.
Yeah.
We'll get to our predictions at the end, and
Okay.
we all know where that's going to go.
Yeah, the Loyal Sons are looking forward to November and December, if that tells you anything about how this season preview is going to go.
ACC championship game.
Really excited about Boston College? I mean, is that what you mean?
It's exactly what I mean. I'd love nothing more than to take PTO and go fly up to watch a game in Boston College.
Chestnut Hill. Chestnut Hill is lovely in late November, I'm sure. Sure, it's really nice there.
Yeah,
November 30th. So,
and I'm sure they have a rockin' game day atmosphere up in Boston College.
I went there once. I was in Boston College one time. The game they played in 2014. I don't know if you remember. They played up there, and they actually won that game. And it was a night game, and so you would think like, oh, it's going to be like really. It was dead. I mean, it was terrible. And like I'm driving around, I'm like, does anyone even know there's a football game going on here? And then I came out to my car in the parking garage at like 2 a.m. and I had a flat tire. No big deal. Change a tire. I don't care. It's a rental car. Whatever. I'll change a tire. I can change a tire. Who cares? Except there's no jack in the trunk. They have the donut and they have like the thing that does the lug nuts, but there was no actual like jack. So I'm like, who rents a car that doesn't have a jack? So that was my experience at Boston College. I had to wait for like AAA. They didn't get there till like 4 a.m. So that was my experience at Boston College. So if you rent a car for that late season ACC, championship game clinching, opportunity, make sure you check to make sure there's a jack in your trunk.
I'll add that to our to-do list for whenever we go up there for the ACC championship game clinching game.
Yeah. They're calling it the Wake Forest game of 2024. That's how it's being referred to right now. So actually, no, that was the next last game of the season in 2018, right? So the Louisville game this year would be what they are calling the Wake Forest game of 2024. So that's the tribute plan.
It's such bullshit. We can't backdoor into the ACC championship at 7-5 again.
Man, first of all, are you saying backdoor ironically or sincerely? Because I have a rant about this that I've been giving for the past 6 years because I get annoyed when people say that they back their way in.
They won every game up until the Miami game.
And like that season could not have started worse than it did. I mean, like you think about the first 5 games of the year, it was a disaster. It was an embarrassment. Like that game at UCF was an embarrassment with guys falling down, trying to, and all that stuff. And then they come back, host, the child of destiny in Syracuse, who was ranked at that point, right? They beat him in overtime. They go out to Notre Dame. They don't win, but it almost felt like a win for playing him as close as they did. And then they rattled off 4 wins in a row to win the Coastal. I mean, they have backing in was like 2004 when they were like, in a 4-way tie or something like that. That was like backing in. 2018, man, they rebounded from a terrible start and, pretty much took advantage of the opportunity. Virginia on the road, I think it was like a Friday night. That was a good win. They had the Virginia Tech game where Quadri Olson 99-yard touchdown run and all that. I mean, like, they legitimately earned it that year. And yeah, then they lost the next 3 games and went 7-7, but they legitimately earned, if nothing else, they earned the Coastal title that year. So I think we have to I give them credit for that. So
okay.
It was unique. We had never been in that position before, and there were college football fans out there who thought that we should have rested our starters against Miami because it was a meaningless game and we should be healthy for the ACC championship game. But no, that's not how college football works.
Little did they know that the injury was not from the Miami game. It was from deciding to throw a touchdown pass to Stefano Millen, and he rolls up Jimmy Morrissey's ankle in the Wake Forest game. So that's what you have to look forward to in the Louisville game, which they're calling the Wake Forest game of 2024. Watch out for whoever's the starting center. Maybe it's Lyndon Cooper getting rolled up on a trick play pass to Branson Taylor. So if we want to get specific about predictions, I mean, that's probably going to happen.
That is about as specific as humanly possible. You're calling what I understand to be the most intensive position battle, non-quarterback position battle at camp right now, still undecided. You're calling a 7-5 season, and specifically what week we would clinch a trip to the ACC title game, and that guy, assuming he has won the center position battle, will get rolled up on in his ankle
on a touchdown pass to Branson.
We're going to put a pin in this one. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
But of course, to clinch it at that point, they would probably have to be pretty much winless in the non-conference, right? I mean, if they're going to follow the 7-5 mold, they pretty much can't have any wins in the non-conference because they'd have to go pretty much undefeated. Because it's not just winning the Coastal now. You know what I mean? You got to finish in the top 2. So to get there, at that point, that would be their 7th game. They'd have to be like 6-1 at worst, right? If they're going to have a chance to get to the ACC championship game, they'd have to be like at least 6-1, which means they're going to go 0-4 in September. I think is part of what we're predicting here, right?
How many, if Pitt started out 0-4, including losses to FCS Youngstown State and possibly the worst FBS team in Kent State, how many people do you think would show up to Pitt Cal, which I already understand is the hottest ticket in town? I'm looking at ESPN right now, and tickets are as low as $9. On October 12th, how many people do you think we would see in Acrisure Stadium?
I mean, it might be, less than 20,000, right? Like, it would be announced as less than 20,000, which if they're announcing less than 20,000, you're putting it at
that means it's friends and family.
Yeah, it really is. It's
a spring game.
Yeah. They're going to have an emergency youth football day that day, I think, just to bring more kids and more people into the game. But yeah, that would
there would be
miserable.
There'd be a collection of maybe 20,000 people protesting Pat Narduzzi having a job if that were the case. So we'd have some spite fans.
I don't know if they'd be like motivated enough though to like come to the game to protest though. You know, I don't know if Pitt fans are that driven to action. You know, they just wouldn't.
The Youngstown State game that would happen. Then after losing against the Youngstown State, we're like, you know what? We're just going to disavow this entire thing.
I think we could get a crew.
I mean, the students will show up, right? Students are pretty reliable. They've been good the past few years. I mean,
yeah.
So students will mostly be there. And,
in the stands or protesting with us?
All of it. You know,
they will be on the North Shore.
They will be there, and they'll be in the stadium, and there'll probably be like 8,000 or 9,000 of them. So, I mean, you add in the friends and the family of the players. I mean, yeah, you'll get probably 15, I would say. But that's not. I don't know if that's going to. I mean, I'm still going back and forth about whether this is the year that they actually go undefeated in the non-conference. So that would go completely contrary to. I don't think it is, but it would go completely contrary to that plan. So, kind of two different paths there.
I was curious, to kind of open up the season preview of it all. I wanted to know what's your temperature right now? Are we trending towards tricking ourselves into, okay, this Pitt team might be a thing like we do every year, or are you slowly getting a little bit bleaker as the season approaches? Where is Chris Peak right now?
Yeah, training camp pushes me typically toward the like bullish side. You know, like if you like anything I wrote or said over the summer, it was like DN's major question mark, D line major question mark. You know, don't know what's going to be at corner other than Rylan Gandy. Don't really know what to make of these offensive skill guys. All these little FCS guys from Western Carolina, they're not going to be able to. You know, this isn't going to translate. All this on and on and on. Slowly but surely, though, oh man, the defensive tackles. They got more former 4-star prospects at D tackle than any other position on the team. You know, might be something there. Ooh, that other corner spot. I mean, Gandy's going to be good. And, you know, Rashad Battle, Tamon Lynham, these guys got good size. I like them, you know. DN's, I'm not there yet. There's still another week of camp for me to come around on the DNs. But then the offensive skill guys, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Desmond Reed and Williams and Lee, they're kind of small, but like, I don't know, it sounds like they're making plays. These guys might be able to. So I tend to go in that direction. I don't know if my like season-long predictions have changed, but I tend to get more bullish as camp goes on. I don't know if the heat starts to get to me or just seeing these guys like hitting each other. I'm like, you know what? Actually, he might be all right there. So I don't know. There's a lot of potential at a lot of these positions with question marks, but there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's a lot of like inexperience at a lot of spots. They basically have 9 new starters on defense. I mean, that's a lot to replace. Even if I like a lot of the guys they're replacing them with, it's a lot to replace. And that transition's not always easy. So who knows how this new offense is going to work? Who knows how these skill guys are going to work in this offense? And who knows how long it's going to take for all the new starters on defense to get sort of comfortable out there. Like I say, third week of camp, fourth week of camp, whatever it is, I start talking myself into them doing well and maybe doing better than I thought previously. But I think there's still plenty of questions that won't really be answered for a couple of weeks.
What questions do you need to see or hear answered leading up to Kent State for you to feel a little bit more confident in this team?
I don't think there's anything right now. You know, like it's all like, what are they actually going to do? Is the offense
there won't
actually
be any
going to
growth
work?
spurts in between now and the opener,
right? And if there is,
Desmond Reed will not become 6'2".
Yes, exactly. And if he is, they'll like hide it from us somehow. They'll make him like they'll dig a special trench that he's supposed to walk in, so it still looks like he's shorter or something. I mean, like they're going into lockdown mode. They're going into in-season, lockdown mode with media policies and everything like that. And so they're, there's going to be little information coming out short of probably the quarterback situation. I hope we'll get some clarity about that over, the next week and a half. But at this point, I mean, they are who they are. It's like somebody asked me last week in my mailbag, like, oh, is it time to start panicking about the defensive ends? I mean, shoot, it's been time to start panicking about the defensive ends for like months now. Like there's nothing new about that. Nothing has really changed in that regard. And so like, I'm a little more bullish on Desmond Reed than I was over the summer. I mean, you kept hearing talk about it, but it was like, I don't know. Now, I mean, it really seems like he's going to have a role. He's going to touch the ball a lot in a lot of different ways, and I think he's going to make an impact. I think the same thing, Poppy Williams, I think is going to be able to play well for this team. And then I like Kanate Mumfield, and I like Kenny Johnson. So, El Barto is who he is. And so coming around on some of these areas, but it's really at this point of like, okay, we need to see it. We need to see it against Kent State, and then you need to see it against Cincinnati, see if the offense is actually going to work.
I mean, if there was one spot I don't think I necessarily needed to be sold, it was the offensive weapons. But what I needed to be sold was, are these players going to be used in a manner that is all logical? Because I think one of the big problems last year was personnel decisions. I mean, we could talk about the quarterback situation and the way that was handled for hours, and we do not have to do that. But, I mean, the lack of use for Hammond, for Bartholomew, I think Kenny Johnson proved himself to have star-in-the-making potential, and these guys just weren't used. So I feel confident in the personnel, but what I'm not confident in, and what I would like you to lie to me and tell me I should be more confident in, is are we going to right these wrongs when it comes to personnel usage, ball dispersal, getting the guys who can make plays the ball in space?
Right.
Repeatedly.
I guess the best way to convince is that, well, they did it before, right? Like specifically with Reed, Lee, and Williams. I mean, these guys got the ball a ton at Western Carolina, so last year, what is Andre Powell doing with Rodney Hammond? Nobody can figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. Why is the ball not going to Gavin Bartholomew? Nobody can figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. It seems like an intentional decision by the coaches. Well, for the past 3 years, Cade Bell made the intentional decision of getting the ball to Desmond Reed a lot, getting the ball to Sincere Lee a lot, and getting the ball to Raphael Williams a lot. And so at least with those 3 specific guys in this specific offense and that specific offensive coordinator, the ball got to them and got to them a lot and gave them a lot of opportunities to make plays. And so I think there's reason to have some confidence about that. I just, there's always going to be this lingering question with this offense of like, say it's a Cincinnati or West Virginia game or a Clemson game or whatever it is. And like, they're going tempo and they got their tempo and they're snapping every 12 seconds and they go 3 and out 3 times. And it takes like a grand combined total of like a minute and a half off the clock. Like how long does, how strong is Pat Narduzzi's stomach? How long can he put up with that? You know what I mean? Like, because I believe him when he says he always is hands off with the offensive coordinators. I believe that. I believe that he doesn't control the offensive coordinators. I feel like, if you want to know Pat Narduzzi's offensive philosophy, it's in who he hires, not so much what he tells them to do. Because I think he lets them do what they want to do. And he gets annoyed with it and fires them after the season, but he lets them do what they want to do. But this season is going to test him in ways that he has not been tested before with this tempo. And if his defense is going back out on the field every 25 seconds because they go 3 and out with 3 incomplete passes and they're hurrying up or whatever it is, or, 3 2-yard passes because they're going, no huddle. How long is he going to stomach it before he says, we got to slow down? And again, I believe him that he's all about autonomy for the offensive coordinator, but like, that's going to wear on you, especially if you start feeling like you're like losing games. And I don't mean in like, Todd Graham, 2011, Iowa, end of the game. They're trying to run hurry up to kill the clock. I mean, like in the course of the game, he feels like they're losing because, they only had 6 minutes of possession in the first half or something like that. I'm really curious to see, because there will be stretches where that happens. I don't think this offense is going to be a well-oiled machine right from the start. There'll be stretches where they go 3 and out like that, and it's not going to take a lot of time off the clock, and the defense is right back out there. Really, it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses over the season.
I'm right there with you. I gave up on believing things that Pat Narduzzi said in press conferences and in interviews a while back, but about a month ago, he was on the ACC network, and he was asked about how his defense will get better, and his answer like made me almost crash my car. He said, we need to score more points. Like the offense doing better will in turn help the defense. And I'm like, this is Pat Narduzzi I'm hearing right now. So I don't know if the last couple of coordinator endings scarred him or last year was so bad that it changed his mindset, but I don't know. Do you think we're going to actually see what's the new Cade Bell catchphrase?
Play fast, score faster. That one?
I think so.
Or does, I mean, he probably has a lot. I mean, he's
actually
the kind of guy who's got a lot of cliches. It is funny. Like, even when you ask Narduzzi or Randy Bates about like their run defense last year, right? And I think there's a general perception that the run defense wasn't very good. They gave up more rushing yards, or the second most rushing yards of any year under Narduzzi. But when you ask them about it, like almost the first thing they say, because, dating back to the spring and then in camp, when we've had different conversations with Narduzzi and Bates about the run defense, they always start talking about Pitt's offense and how other teams didn't, there was no threat of Pitt scoring. So other teams were like, well, we can just hand it off. We don't need to be aggressive and throw the ball and drop back. And so Pitt's like sack numbers were way down. The rushing yardage allowed was way up, even though on a per carry basis, they gave up fewer yards per carry last year than they did the year before. But they were faced, I think, more rushing attempts per game than any year under Narduzzi, like taking out sacks, just actual handoffs and that kind of thing. And so they still talk about offense in that case. So it's almost like Narduzzi is like, all right, I got to fix the offense because it's making my defense look bad.
Yeah, like that's all it took.
He doesn't really want to score more. He just, that defense was better than 3 and 9. We shouldn't have gone through. I can't believe my defense had to go 3 and 9, and now I'm gonna fix the offense.
He made this decision in the most self-serving way, not the way you'd think either. Like, oh, I want to score points to win football games. I want to score points to make my defense look better.
Yep. If we can score more, they're going to have to drop back to pass more, and then we'll start getting sacks and turnovers. And
Exactly.
it all comes back to that. Yeah. Why do you want to score more? Well, because I need my defense to be able to win games for us. That would be his convoluted logic.
Yeah. So, I mean, this Cade Bell hire was a serious about face from Pat Narduzzi compared to the type of hires he's made in the past. Do you think that we are seeing a new Pat Narduzzi who's learned the error of his ways? Or do you think there was some influence from outside of the South Side in his ear saying, whether it was boosters or administration saying like, hey, we aren't doing the 60-year-old guy running a 1990s offense anymore, or you're going to have a problem?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was him. I think it was all him. I don't really know if there's anybody who could or would have that conversation with Pat Narduzzi right now. I don't know if there are really boosters that would feel comfortable talking to him like that. I don't know if he would get that kind of conversation from athletic department administration, and if it was put to him like that, I really don't know how he would respond, because he's Pat Narduzzi, and I don't know if he necessarily would like being told what to do. You know what I mean? He's not going to get fired anytime soon because he's still got a few more years left on his contract. So, I don't know. I think he made this decision on his own. I think last year was an abject disaster. I think he recognized it as such. I think it was an embarrassment. And I think he looked at it and he was like, look, I have to figure something out. We still can have some balance in the offense, but we have to be able to score. We have to be able to score if we're going to win games, because there were, countless number of games that were lost last season because of how bad the offense was. And he probably also was like, I need somebody who's competent as a quarterback evaluator, because the guy last year, let me down a lot. I think if there was anything that Pat Narduzzi learned from last year, and I don't know if he would ever admit this, I think, and maybe it's just my own wishful thinking, but I believe he learned about what he has to do as a head coach, as far as when, look, if the quarterback sucks, you got to step in and say, hey, if the quarterback's playing poorly and the coordinator's not going to make a change, you got to step in and tell him. And again, that comes back to the autonomy thing we talked about before. But I don't want to hear about, I don't know anything about offense, I leave it to those guys, I don't know. You don't need to be an offensive genius to recognize lousy quarterback play. There were 25,000 people at Heinz Field watching the Cincinnati game or something, and we all recognized bad quarterback play. There was how many people watching that West Virginia game? We all saw and recognized bad quarterback play. And the one guy you put in charge of making that decision wasn't making the decision that needed to be made. You needed to step in, which I think Narduzzi ultimately did after the, I guess it was the Carolina game, right? Or no, the Virginia Tech game. I think he ultimately did step in and say, we need a change here. You have to be willing to do that earlier. You have to trust your own eyes, because you might not be an offensive guy, but you've coached football for 50 years or something. You can tell when it's not working. And so I think, and he had a quote last week about somebody asked him about quarterback situations and things, and he had some quote about you find out about who you can trust, you make sure you're trusting the right people or something. And it was one of these sort of jumbled up mixes of words that you kind of have to parse down and move words around to get to the gist of it. And I think what he was saying is, he felt like he trusted the wrong people last year when it came to the quarterback situation. And I don't think that was just Frank Cignetti. He's said and made allusions to a few times the fact that the rest of the offensive staff, none of them ever came into his office and was like, dude, we can't keep doing this. Nobody ever came to him. I mean, he's made that implication. We had kind of heard that was part of the reason there was such a, cleaning house when the season ended, where everybody got fired. I mean, to some extent, your offense is the worst offense in Pitt history, and you're going to have to make some changes. But I think he felt like, I'm hands off with the offense, so I need to know what's going on with the offense. And it was actually, we were talking to him about how he made Corey Sanders the assistant head coach. And I asked him, I was like, does that mean Corey has sort of carte blanche to come into your office and tell you things you might not want to hear, but he thinks you think. He's like, yeah, that's exactly. He's like, that's what I want. I want people who are going to come and tell me what I need to know. And he's like, maybe that was part of the problem last year. That there was, I forget if he specifically said on offense, but it was pretty clear what the implication was that like,
right.
Nobody ever came to him and just said, this is bad. Coach, we have to change something here. Like if Cignetti's not going to do it, you have to do it. And so I think he might have learned, that might have been his biggest lesson from last year, I think.
But what's really frustrating from our perspective as fans is you're telling me you needed Borbley or Tim Salem in your office telling you that it's not working with Phil.
Yeah.
You needed to hear that to step in and be the head coach of the University of Pittsburgh and make that switch. I don't care how hands off you are. After the Cincinnati game, it was I'll give Phil a little bit more grace than that because people have bad games. Halftime of the West Virginia game, you are committing malpractice by not stepping in and doing something there. And if he's that hands off that he wasn't going to touch it because he wants to be, a good coach to coach for, that's fine. But I'm deeply curious how Cignetti kept letting this happen. We've just kind of written that off as, he was a bad offensive coordinator. He made bad decisions. But I don't know. I had planned to ask you about that as well. What, with the benefit of hindsight, what all went into the debacle that was the quarterback situation last year. But I
don't know. I don't know what he saw because I saw the same thing you guys saw, that everybody saw. And it was like, what's missing here? Why is the one guy who's in a position to make this? I mean, he's not the only guy who was in a position to make that decision, but apparently with the hierarchy of the structure of the organization last year, the one guy in position to make that decision, what was he looking at? Like, what did he see? And I understand, he promised Dracovic the job, and maybe, but for whatever reason, he was just blind to it and just believed Phil was the guy and didn't like, I think he liked Christian Veer a lot and believed that Veer was the quarterback of the future. I mean, this was always the plan, right? Phil was going to be the guy for 1 year, and then it was going to be Veer for the next 2 years, and Pitt was going to win lots of games, and it was going to be all this great stuff. He had no time for or interest in Nate Yarnell. He didn't really care for Keaton Slovis either, which, I mean, is a whole other topic in conversation. He just believed Phil was the guy, and like, by God, Phil was going to be the guy. And, despite all clear evidence to the contrary. And there was stuff.
Are you talking about Dews or Cignetti?
Cignetti.
Okay.
I'm talking entirely about Cignetti here. There was even stuff like that came out last year during camp. And I can remember like different people would talk about like, I'm hearing that Phil is throwing the ball as well as he ever has. Like this is the best he's looked. And, and people who either had watched practice or talked to people who watched practice, and I would hear it and I'd be like, okay, that's interesting. But it was clear that it was coming directly from Cignetti, that this was either his perception or the word he wanted to spread, that Phil was just playing at this amazing level and doing so great in practice. And you talk to different people like, oh yeah, it's clear. The players clearly know it. Everybody agrees Phil might have been the best option in camp, because I don't think Nate Yarnell was getting any opportunities in camp last year, and Christian Veer was throwing it to the defense half the time. So Phil probably was the best option of what they had. But it comes a point where you're in the games and you're like, wait, it can't be worse than this. And Veer proved that he could be worse in like all kinds of different ways. His passes got caught just by the other team.
Right. Yeah, that was bad.
So I guess he probably was the best quarterback in camp, at least of the guys getting opportunities. But I think we've all pretty much come to a consensus that even if Christian Veer starts the season, but certainly if Nate Yarnell starts the season, they win at least 6, right? If not 7, if not 8.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, what's the number? Do you guys have a?
We did this last week, and
I only arrived at 6.
I think we got to 6. We might have lost the Louisville game with Nate Yarnell because Veer actually played pretty good, so we flip-flopped that. But there's a couple like extremely winnable games. And
yeah, I mean, I know they had Yarnell for the Duke game, but Yarnell
had given up by that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, his 12th start versus his second start or third start or whatever. I mean, I think he might have been played. They would have beat Syracuse. I don't think there's any question about that. I think they beat Wake Forest is a tough one because, I mean, Bear obviously screwed it up with that slide, but he kind of led them back in that game. He made some
for
big
300
plays.
yards.
Yeah, I mean,
he played a great game.
Yeah.
Aside from that one thing, which again,
Yes,
I don't even know if I can blame him for. That's such a technicality.
Yeah, that never gets called. Nobody ever
it's a big letter of the law versus intent of the law thing,
right? But then there was I feel like on Wake Forest's final drive, then Pitt had multiple penalties.
Wasn't there a targeting?
Yeah,
on the punt or something?
Yeah, and
McMillan did something.
Yeah.
Grab the guy off the pile.
It was that's right. Because so there was 2 15-yard penalties on one play.
Yeah.
And so they just moved Wake Forest right into anyway. So that doesn't have anything to do with Nate Yarnell. But I do think they win at West Virginia, right? I think they beat Cincinnati. I think Virginia Tech was a game where they ran the ball 50 times because they weren't scared of Pitt's offense at all. He completed the long pass to Bub Means to start the game, and that was it. At least if your offense has a pulse, they can't do that. They're not going to keep running it like that. So I think you've got a better chance there. At least 6. I think 6 is a number that we can come to. And then you're going to a bowl game again. And it's a step back from 2022, but at least it's not 3-9, right?
But then we can say we won 6 games despite Phil Dracovic being the guy for a while. And we're not in that bad of a place.
Yeah. I guess I wonder, I guess it depends on when they.
It's easier to get to 10 wins coming off of a 6-win season to 3-win season.
Yeah. Well, the flip side too is that, when you only win 3, you set the bar pretty low for what counts as forward progress, right? If they only win 5 or 6 this year, well, hey, it's better than 3. They're building back up. They're climbing the ladder. So
we've made it to the 32-minute mark. I think it's time we ask the question. Let's say Pat Narduzzi gives Chris Peak a call and says, I'm still not ready to make a decision on quarterback. Last year has me all messed up, so I want you to decide who our starting quarterback is going to be. Who are you picking and why?
For the record, I trust Peak so much more right now than Pat Narduzzi or anyone he's hired to make this call given the last 2 years. So please guide us.
Look, man, Keaton Slovis would have been fine 2 years ago. If he didn't get concussed against Tennessee, he would have been fine. They would have beat Georgia Tech. They probably would have beat Louisville. They would have gone to the ACC championship game. It was, anyway. But just because you said the last 2 years, Keaton Slovis doesn't need to be maligned as much.
Team Patty. I'm Team Patty still.
Yeah, he was good. He almost averaged 5 yards per attempt in the Sun Bowl. So that was pretty. But
he was a gamer. He was a gamer.
There have been few Levance Fields pulling up for 3 in a couple of those games, like the Duke game and the NCAA tournament game. There are some games that just you're like, that dude's got some stones. Nick Patty pulling that ball down and running, that's an onions play that I don't think a lot of people have that. You know what I mean? I don't think a lot of guys will be like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna run here. Even though I need 7 yards, and if I don't get it, we lose. We lose this game if I don't reach the lead. So mad props to him. Not a very good quarterback, but mad props to him for that play. All right, we're getting sidetracked. What did you ask me? Who am I starting at quarterback? I don't know. I haven't really seen Eli Holstein play. I don't know. I know what people have told me about him. He's got a great arm. He can run. He's you can make plays out of the pocket. Keep plays alive, but I haven't actually seen him do it. I've watched the high school film like everybody else, but I haven't seen him actually do it in college. But I've seen Nate Yarnell go out, complete, I think, close to 70% of his passes in his 3 starts, throw 1 interception on 76 attempts, and that interception was BS. It should have been a defensive pass interference in that game at Duke, and it actually never should have happened because the play before that, he threw a perfect touchdown pass to Malcolm Epps, and Epps didn't catch the pass. If Epps just catches that, he never throws the pick, and they might actually win that game. So I can't hold that against Nate Yarnell. He's really efficient. He gets the ball to the receivers. So, but I don't feel like I have enough information to say, well, I would definitely start. It seems like Holstein might have more upside, more like physical talents and upside in that regard. But Yarnell does a good job taking care of the ball. I would probably, and this might actually happen. I don't know. I might go into this Kent State game with the same approach they had in 2015 with Chad Wojcik and Nate Peterman. And like Wojcik took 2 series and then Peterman took 2 series. And you just kind of bounce back and forth a little bit until you find somebody that you like. And, I think that year it took until the second game. I don't know if I would extend a rotation into the Cincinnati game unless you're still not totally sold. But put them both out there. See what they can do. See who can make plays in this offense, who can operate the offense the best. Put it both out there. So I didn't answer your question of who I would start, but,
I would accept the dual quarterbacks against Kent State if it implied that they used above 50% of the playbook, because I think every Pitt fan is preparing themselves for the Pat Narduzzi Galaxy brain. Here's the 2 formations you're allowed to run, Cade Bell. We aren't giving anybody anything, especially not our paying supporters.
If we end up beating our rival in week 2, I'd be okay with it. But we fell for it last year as well. We thought, yeah, they'll turn out the big plays moving forward. It's just Wofford. They're taking it easy on them.
Yeah. Well, that was the 2017. They opened against Youngstown State. I think they had to go to overtime. Yeah. And I was like, no big deal. They're just holding the offense back. Don't get all worked up. No.
They'll beat Penn State again.
No, the offense was just crap. That's what it came down to. So, yeah, I mean, of course they're going to do that. Of course, I'm going to complain about it. You guys probably will too. I hate it when they hold that stuff back. Even if you do it, it gives you a little bit of an advantage against Cincinnati. Great. Now the other 10 games on your schedule have all seen it. So just drop it. Go out, especially with a brand new offense.
Yeah.
Work this thing in. Practice it against another team who's game planning against you, and go out and you know what? You can actually use it to your advantage. You can run a bunch of your playbook and establish some tendencies for Cincinnati to scout and then work against those tendencies. You don't have to just have this vanilla offense that looks nothing like your real offense. Hate it. I don't like it at all, especially when you're breaking in a brand new offense and you're trying to figure out who your best quarterback is. I think it defeats the purpose. It's counterproductive, and it's probably exactly what they'll do.
Can't wait.
Are you or someone you know looking for work in a recession-proof industry? Are you someone that's interested in things like having health care, having a 401k, immediate PTO accrual, an employee assistance program, or referral payouts? Our newest sponsor, Haddad Accelerated Delivery, an Amazon delivery partner, is looking for safety-minded and dependable drivers to join their delivery service team. Be a part of a company that will encourage self-ownership and award bonuses based on exceptional safety and delivery efforts. This is the ideal gig for individuals seeking full-time work or students interested in making some pretty good money during breaks. If you or someone you know is safety-focused, hardworking, organized, efficient, and team-oriented, text HADD to 464-646 to apply. I understand that is an impossible string of letters and numbers, so here it is again. That's HADD to 464-646. For a job that's the total package, get it? Because it's deliveries. Haddad Accelerated Delivery is the place for you.
Yeah.
Wait, so did you answer who you're telling Coach Dews to start?
Screw it, Eli. Put the upside guy out there. Go with Eli. I mean, for Kent State, yeah, put him out there. But, do the 2 drives each, back and forth possessions thing. 2 possessions this guy, 2 possessions that guy. But start with Eli. Give Eli the first 2, and then bring Yarnell in for the next 2 after that. It'll all be. I mean, if we're talking about 2 possessions each, I mean, you'll see both guys for 2 possessions after the first 5 minutes of the game with the tempo. So, you'll have plenty of time to judge them and make your decision on who you want to go with. So
yeah, it's a couple quick 3 and outs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Who can operate the 3 and outs better?
Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago. how bad will morale be? Like if it was like one of those win graph charts, like up to 99%, then you blow a big lead. How low would it be if we come out and throw 3 incomplete passes in the first drive of the game and punt?
Wait, somebody asked me to script Pitt's first like touchdown drive, a 5-play touchdown drive, and I forget. I think the first play I had them throw like a 6-yard in-breaking route to like Kanate Mumfield out of the slot or something, and then a handoff on second down, and then like Gavin Bartholomew to like get the first down. So I think like they're not going to like take the deep shot on the first possession. I think fans will get disgruntled because they'll just try and like dink and dunk, I think, for a while. And so if they go, 3 incomplete passes on dink and dunk, supposedly high percentage throws, that would be really, really disheartening. At least, try and take one deep shot somewhere in there.
I think if you just give it to Bartholomew on the first drive, that'll hold us over for a few quarters.
It shouldn't be that
let him
hard.
play Wildcat.
Hey, I've heard that, it's one of those, football is a, it's a copycat league, right?
Yeah.
Football is a copycat league. And so when you see that tight ends are running out of the Wildcat and having a success, I mean, why wouldn't you try and mimic that? Don't run away from it. You're all proud about how the Minnesota Vikings run your defense. Well, maybe you could pick up some of that tight end Wildcat action from the Orange,
Good God. I don't know if I feel any better yet.
Wait, did you have me on so we could feel better about this? Is that what we were talking about here? Oh, really?
Kinda. I
You're
think
going to tell us about how everyone in camp looks really good.
Didn't I tell you? Yeah, this is the 3rd week. I'm coming around.
Bengali Kamara really
Don't
good
you-
against LA. No, he's gone.
Don't you remember how this transaction goes? You convince us Bengali Kamara is going to be an All-American. We convince you Pitt's going to win 10 games.
Okay.
It's
We
a
did that last
symbiotic relationship.
Right. Oh, so you need a new All-American.
We've done
this
that
year.
2 years in a row now.
See, I can't say Donovan McMillan because that's actually proven to be good. I have to like overhype somebody who is not Kyle Lewis. Can I overhype Kyle Lewis? Can I stick with the outside linebackers and just go like nuts on overhyping outside linebackers?
I've read some of your stuff on him, and it does have me very excited.
If anybody thought I learned my lesson last year of overhyping outside linebackers, no way, not at all. Because I think I'm actually more hyped about this year's outside linebackers than I was about last year's outside linebackers. So you're talking about going overboard. But Kyle Lewis, I think, is going to be awesome. I think Rasheem Biles is really good. Lovelace and Bass, all 4 of those guys, I think they're going to play a ton. I think they're going to be really good. I think I don't think they'll get all conference recognition because Pitt just gets overlooked. Servassier Dennis is the only Pitt linebacker under Narduzzi who's gotten an all conference nod. He's also the only linebacker who's been drafted, which is kind of weird. But although it's not that weird because I actually made a list of all the linebackers who played under Narduzzi. And I don't really know why any of those guys would be invited to play professionally. So it kind of makes sense. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Hyping the outside linebackers. Yeah, Kyle Lewis, a little bit shorter guy, but he's he was a do-everything guy at his high school. He's super athletic. They've been excited about him since he got there, but he got hurt, so he wasn't able to play. He probably would have been on the field more the last 2 years, but now he's healthy and just seems like he's going to be a stud. Rasheem Biles, I mean, he blocked 3 punts as a true freshman. The dude's ridiculous. He's super athletic. All these guys.
My favorite stat.
The Biles 3 block punts.
That we just had a backup true freshman linebacker who snuffed out 3 punts.
I want to say he had almost as many blocked punts as he had defensive snaps played last year. I think he played 8 defensive snaps. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now because I have this. He played 8 defensive snaps all in one game. He had more blocked punts than games where he played on defense last year. But he's going to be awesome, though, because all these guys, like Biles, Bass, Lovelace, Lewis, they're not all the same height, but they're all like these sort of athletic guys. Like if Braylon Lovelace played at Central Catholic or someplace, he would have been a safety rather than, he still might have been a linebacker, but he was in that safety kind of build. Jordan Bass was like a safety, a wide receiver playmaker. Rasheem Biles was a safety, playmaker. Kyle Lewis was sort of all over the field. It's this different mold of of linebackers that they've been bringing in, and they had athletic guys before. Sean Idowu was a high school safety. Elijah Zeiss was a high school safety. Salim Brightwell. But these guys are different. These guys, this is a different mold of athlete, a different breed of athlete than they've had. And I think it's going to pay off. I think they're going to be really, really good. I can't tell you why I blew it so much on Bengali Kamara last year, but I just know I'm getting it right this year with Lewis, Biles, Bass, and Lovelace.
You nailed the whole freak athlete thing. The guy couldn't make a run fit. It was something missing upstairs that guy couldn't fill the right hole.
Yeah, I never claimed to have any. I never claimed any authority on his knowledge of the playbook. You know, all I said was that I thought he looked like an SEC level athlete, and look where he is now. He's in the SEC.
Yeah,
I think I also probably said he would be in the NFL this year. So never mind that.
You went like 50% on that, I guess.
Close.
But no, it makes me happy to hear you talk about the linebackers like that, because it's the only position group that I feel right now, today, I can say that is a better position group than what we had last year. Because there's a few where, we return our receivers, we return our running backs. Yarnell, I think, is an improvement at quarterback, which is obviously the most important. But as far as upgrades, linebackers, I think, is one. Helps that I'm a huge Key Thompson guy. I know you didn't mention him yet, and I had to throw his name out there because he is also, like myself, a Bobcat. But I'm very excited about that linebacking core. And we know, if there's one reason to be optimistic, we know how pivotal it is in that Randy Bates, Pat Narduzzi defense to have freaky, athletic, and competent linebackers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you can look like I was looking over like the starting lineups over the last few years, trying to see like how this one sort of compares. And I mean, some of the best groups they had, like the ACC championship year. I mean, it was Cam Bright, Servassier Dennis, Phil Campbell, with Johnny Patrician backing them up. Like, that's a pretty good group of linebackers. I mean, like, those guys, and they played well. I mean, the year before that, 2020, I mean, Campbell, Bright, and like Chase Pine was out there. Wendell Davis was out there, but like they've had some good groups. I mean, they've had guys like Kylan Johnson was really good for that 1 year in 2019. Tyler Wiltz was really good, not quite as good as Johnson, but was pretty good in 2022. It's just a position I think they've struggled to get the right kinds of guys that they want there, to get the right kinds of athletes. And I think they've got maybe a group that this year, the group like matches Narduzzi's vision as much as any group that he's had. The safeties are going to be awesome too. Probably doesn't feel like an upgraded position because it's the same guys coming back. But I think like Donovan McMillan has like doubled his knowledge of the playbook. It seems like he really knows what he's doing now. I think PJ O'Brien doesn't want to be the third guy in the rotation anymore. And never mind, he had like 3 interceptions last year, and he's already got a bunch of takeaways in training camp. And Javon McIntyre doesn't want to get left behind because you got Cruz Brookins pushing all of those guys. Like, I think it's actually even better this year because the 3 returning guys are elevating their game, and Brookins and even Jesse Anderson are pushing them behind it. I think that position is stock. It's crazy. Like, I've talked about it a bunch of times of like, I mean, you just go from like DeMar Hamlin and Paris Ford to Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett, now to, McMillan and McIntyre, with Brookins and Anderson waiting in the wings. Like, somehow they've built this incredible pipeline of safeties of like really good players, and a bunch of guys who have gone on to the NFL. I mean, Paris Ford should have gone to the NFL, but Hamlet, Hallett, Hill are all there. McMillan's going to be in the NFL. We'll see who else comes out of it, but it's that spot. Yeah, I mean, I think they're really good in the back 7 because I think Rylan Gandy will be really good, and I think the other corner they'll find. At this point, I think they've done a good enough job transitioning from cornerback groups, like as personnel moves and turns over. They've done a good enough job that I kind of have sort of like blind faith. I'm like, no, they'll figure it out. They'll find some corners, like, oh, Dane Jackson's gone. Well, they got Mathis and Pinnock and Mathis are gone. Well, Marquez and MJ and AJ, like they'll find guys who can just do it because they've done it for the last like 10 years. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of just sort of, corner, they'll be fine there. So it's the back 7 is fine. It's just that the front 4 is a big question mark.
See, I think that we're surprised to hear you say that about the corners because we've always been of the opinion that if you put inexperienced corners into that Pat Narduzzi defense, it shows, and it shows badly because of the way he puts them on islands. So we have been very worried both. I don't know how much we've talked about it on air, but definitely in, our little Loyal Sons powwows, how worried we are about the corner position this year. Are you here to say that we can assuage those fears?
I think so. I mean, because you're right, like inexperienced guys, but like once they got into it, like after the first couple of years, when they settled in with like Dane Jackson as a starter, I forget who started. I think maybe Avonte Maddox was there for like one more year with Dane Jackson, but like they just sort of were able to start segueing from group to group with guys who maybe didn't have a ton of experience on the field, but they had been around for a little while. So like when Marquez Williams was called on, he had been in the program for a couple of years. AJ Woods had been in the program for a couple of years. MJ Devonshire, transferred in, but he was an older guy. And so I think they were able to go pretty like seamlessly. Like what was the last bad cornerback situation they've had? I mean, you have to go back to like 2016, right? Like I think they've been pretty good at that position ever since then. I don't remember it being a vulnerability. So I look at it this year and I'm like, okay, I think Rylan Gandy will be good. And then the other guys there, like Rashad Battle, who's a 4th or 5th year senior. So he's been around. He's actually played a decent amount when he's been healthy. And Tavon Lynham, a guy who's another 4th year player or veteran player coming in as a transfer. So they're not really going to put young guys out there. There's a lack of experience, but like I say, it's just, I think they've earned some kind of, the benefit of the doubt that until it blows up or until they have a bad showing, we kind of just assume they're going to keep rolling guys out there.
I thought we were the ones who were supposed to be really optimistic and making the other person feel better. Because
no, we discussed
you did right there.
Symbiotic. It's symbiotic.
Okay. Well, you did a good job there because I was also in the camp with David of I'm scared because I haven't seen these guys play before. Although in the past few days, I saw some good Rylan Gandy 5-second clips on Instagram. So that combined with what you just said makes me feel very confident about the secondary as a whole.
Yeah, I think they'll be good, and I think the linebackers will be good. It's just, can they create any pressure up front? That's the big question.
Well, you'd have to tell us that.
I don't know. That's why it's the big question. It's not the big question for me to answer. It's the big question to find out when the team actually plays. I mean, I think Sean Fitzsimmons can be good. Isaiah Neal should be really good. We'll see about Nick James. We'll see if the move of Nikai Johnson works. We'll see if Anthony Johnson is a transfer work. I mean, I'm just talking about the tackles here. Let alone you get out to the ends. We're like, well, one of your transfer ends has played in a 3-4 defense his whole college career. The other transfer defensive end has never played a snap with his hand on the ground in his college career. Then your other guy in the rotation is a redshirt, I think, sophomore. It seems like he'll be pretty good, but he's from New York, and New York football is not very good. So we'll see if that pans out. And then the 4th guy in the rotation is a freshman. And I don't really know if there's anybody behind those 4. So you're not very deep. You may be talented, but I don't know. And you have, your oldest guys are guys who are doing things that they've never done before in their college careers. So it could work out. Like Chief Borders looks the part. I mean, you talk about guys who look great getting off the bus. He looks great. He looks like a football player. Nate Madlack's got nice size. I think Sincere Edwards will be really good. My biggest concern last year going into the season was, boy, it feels like you're asking a lot of guys to do things that they've never done before in their careers. Like, it's not to mean that they can't do it, but you're asking Phil Dracovic to play a full 12-game season, something he had not done. You're asking Bub Means to do this. You're asking this guy to do that, and so on and so forth. That was my biggest concern, and that's kind of how I feel with a lot of the D-line, or at least the ends this year, is like you're asking and you're going to be relying and depending on a bunch of guys to do things they've never done before. It doesn't mean they can't do it. And each one individually, I can be like, yeah, I can convince myself Nate Matlack can do it. And I can convince myself Chief Borders can do it. But to convince myself that all of them can do it all at the same time is a bit of a tougher sell.
I think that's where we went wrong last year, yeah. There was just so many ifs that we fully bought into. Because we love to play our favorite game. And I'll let you guess coincidentally what we're going to be playing at the end of this episode. We love to play our favorite game. How can this team win 10 games? Which is just us convincing ourselves they're going to win 10 games. And it includes a lot of, well, if this 19-year-old corner that I've never seen play football before is just unbelievable. And if this defensive end who has never registered a sack in a Division I game can, and these are all, I'm not even referring to anyone specifically, but that's the level of thing that we have to convince ourselves this year and also a little bit last year to get to the point we want to get, which is deluding ourselves into this being a playoff team.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Really? You went an extra step there. I was like, as you're like, I'm looking through the schedule about how I'm going to convince you that they can win 10 games here. But then when you start talking about playoffs, I'm like, oh, crap. If they win 10 games, that might be a playoff. Well, no, okay, I can. All right. If when we get to that point in the conversation,
okay,
I can convince you of why they'll win 10 games, but they won't make the playoffs. So.
Yeah, I'd love to be mad about a 10-win season this year.
So maybe that's our transition to start making some predictions here. I think we owe it to the people. We've been hypothesizing for the last 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's give people what they listen to sports talk radio for, and that is just blindly taking shots all over the place, just really talking out of our ass.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So we have a couple questions for you. You can make predictions. You can answer them sincerely based on logic and facts if you want to be like boring. But we'll give our best answers as well because this is our season preview as well. So if you guys are ready to walk out on some limbs,
let's do it.
Okay. First is an opinion question. Squid, Chris, David, what is your biggest concern going into the season?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Well, he said you're
very brave,
so I was waiting for you. When he said Squid, Chris, David, I was like, oh, that's the order we're going to go in. So
go ahead, sacrificial lamb.
I'm just say there's too many ifs. Like, I think a bunch of guys could be better than I think that they'll be. Like, I think Desmond Reed might be better than I think I'll be. Maybe the receivers are better than I think they'll be. Maybe the defensive ends will surprise me. But there's too many things that have to go right all together. And I think my biggest concern is the front four. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of sacks, and in turn, it'll make the corners look shaky. And yeah, there's a lot of other things I could say, but I'll just not steal everyone's answers and say something about the whole team. So I'll say the defense being cohesive.
Nice. I think my biggest concern is the offense. Just can this Western Carolina FCS offense work in the ACC? And that does. I'm not saying I don't think it can. I just don't know if it will. And so it all kind of comes down to that, because if the offense doesn't work, then they're going to win 5 or 6 games or 4. And if the offense does work, they can win more than that. So that's the biggest concern for me.
Mine is still very much personnel and ball distribution decisions. It feels like every single, even successful Pitt seasons are slightly mired by like, yeah, but why did the best player on the field not get the ball? Like, even when we won an ACC championship, I was pulling my hair out at how few carries Izzy Abanikanda was getting. Like, there's always going to be things like that. And my worry with this team is we have good known commodities in the skilled positions, and we've added some really solid depth with some FCS guys. But I'm worried that we're going to see some BS like Desmond Reed being used like Vinny Davis, as in a power back at 160 pounds, or that Bart and Mumfield and Kenny Johnson are going to be losing targets to Sincerely and Poppy Williams, who also average about 160 because, oh, well, they know the offense better. So, we want to get the ball in the hands of guys who know the offense better. No. You're going to get the ball in the hands of the freak show tight end who's one of the best players in his position in the country, or the running back that averages 120 yards a game when he touches the ball 15 times. That's what worries me, that we're going to continue the proud Pitt tradition of just baffling personnel decisions.
The only counter to that is that it's a brand new offensive staff, right? So we have no idea. They might find all new ways to like befuddle you. So, it might not be personnel. They might have totally different ways to like drive you crazy. So that's part of the excitement. How are they going to make you mad?
Already pissed off. Okay. The reason you're optimistic for the season.
The schedule is pretty easy.
There we go.
A lot of very winnable games, and I think there's some teams that could be worse than we think. So I think the ceiling of 10 wins will be difficult, but being significantly better in the win total compared to last year will be easy.
Yeah, I think the schedule is a big one. I think I don't know, like I really feel like you have to be really bad to not win at least 6 games in college football. Like you have to be like actively, intentionally bad to not win 6 games in college football. So at the baseline, I think they get back to there, just because I don't think they're going to be intentionally bad this season. I am optimistic about the defense. I think, it's a transition year with all these new starters, but I think there's a lot of exciting guys. You're starting to finally like segue out of those like super seniors and those guys who got the extra COVID year, like those guys, and Devin Danielson and David Green and Tyler Bentley. I mean, great guys, good solid players, but like, God, they've been here forever, and so just seeing some new faces will be nice, I think. And I think it'll be, boy, it's disappointing that your 2 starting outside linebackers transferred, but it's creating some opportunities for some pretty exciting young guys, like those guys we talked about, Lewis and Biles and Lovelace and Bass. I mean, the door is wide open for those guys now to really get a lot of playing time. And I think that's exciting. I think the safety position is exciting. So talking up the youth of the defense doesn't necessarily get you to 10 wins, but I do think it creates some optimism for the season, because you have that kind of transition year, and I think it can lead to some pretty fun stuff, pretty exciting stuff. And so that's a big one for me.
I'll refer back to my previous answer and say the known commodities that we have on offense. I trust Pat Narduzzi enough to scout and then develop players on the defensive side of the ball. Even if you lose a bunch of guys to both the draft and the Colorado NIL machine, and those guys say that the team actually sucks on the way out the door, I still have faith in Narduzzi to build a pretty good defense. And I mean, we have seen Rodney Hammond be good. We have seen 4 of the 5 linemen that are going to start this year be good. We have seen Nate Yarnell be good. We have seen Kanate Mumfield be good. There's promise on the side of the ball that killed us last year.
Just be good.
If we can run a modern offense that is logical.
Good and logic.
Yes.
Good things.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me an offensive and defensive MVP for this year.
I would love it to be Gavin Bartholomew, but I think Kanate Mumfield is going to have a really big year. So I'll go with Kanate Mumfield, and I'll go with Kyle Lewis. He's going to be making a lot of tackles.
Like it.
I do too. I don't know who I can pick on offense. I almost want to go with like Ryan Baer or something like that. That like, I think he'll be good. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's gonna. I think last year was tough for him as his first year as a starter, but I think he's gonna be really good.
Will he catch touchdowns this year?
I mean, like, if you want to get, Lyndon Cooper's ankle rolled up, I guess, in the Louisville game, which they're calling the Wake Forest game of 2024. If you want to
I've heard that.
yeah, that's what they're calling it. I don't know. This is what they tell me. But I don't know if they have any tackle eligible plays. But maybe they could slide Ryan Jacoby back out to tight end, and he could take a few snaps out there.
Yes,
kick it like it's
please.
20. What year did you do that? 2022 when he played all those tackle tight end spots. No, I pick Bear. I like Bear. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be second team all conference player. I think he's going to have a good season. And I'll take the easy one on defense and say like Donovan McMillan. I think he's going to. I don't know if he's going to have 100 tackles again, because it kind of comes back to that whole thing we talked about with how much teams ran against Pitt last year. I think if Pitt's offense is better, other teams won't run as much, and that's going to cut down on the tackle opportunities for McMillan. So I don't know if he'll go over 100 tackles, but I think he might get a couple more interceptions than he had last year and still have 90-plus tackles and end up being another all-conference guy, first or second team, and then probably an NFL draft pick. I think he's going to have a big season this year.
Give me Kenny Johnson. I want to say Rodney Hammond because I don't know why. I have a soft spot for Rodney Hammond. Love the way he runs the football, but I just haven't heard enough about him this preseason for me to have built enough hype. Give me Kenny Johnson because he looks like on that offense the guy who could most be special. I think there's a lot of guys on that offense who can be above average to pretty good. He's the one I see and I'm like, he could be special. He reminds me enough of another receiver who looked very good at a very young age, who played for Pitt and then did not play for Pitt. We don't say his name anymore, Jordan Addison. But that he looks like he could be the guy that could capture lightning in a bottle for us and make something out of nothing. So I think he has the most potential to go boom. And then on defense, I'm going to say Nate Matlack, because if he is the best player on that defense this year, then this actually might just be like an 8-win team.
It's a good call. I like it. I think Jim and I were talking about over under on sacks for Nate Matlack. I think I set it at like either 6.5 or 7.5.
Whoa.
6.5. Would you take it over under 6.5 sacks for Nate Matlack? He had like 4 or 4.5 last year at K-State, playing as a 3-4 defensive end, where you're not really rushing the passer.
Yeah.
So maybe 6.5 is too low. Should I set the line at 7.5?
I don't know, because Elijah Cansey had 7.5 sacks, and he was, I know, different position, but like that is, I'm trying to set, a barometer there. He was like one of the best pass rushers I've seen at the college level, despite, again, playing a different position. So I don't know if I think he's Elijah Cansey good.
Yeah, and some of those other years with our best defensive ends, they rotated so much. I don't know if we'll rotate as much just because we don't have as many high caliber players in defensive ends. So maybe we'll just churn them out there for 80% of the snaps.
Hobble Baldonado
cool.
had 9 sacks in 2021. So,
That's more than I would have guessed.
Fuck
that
give
was
me
like
the
his
over.
one big year. Over on 6.5 or over on 7.5?
Both. I just said he's going to be the defensive MVP, so I better take the over.
You got to take the over. Actually.
Yeah.
I could have pushed it to 8.5, and you would have had to take the over on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep raising that over under. I'm going to keep taking the over because I'm here now, aren't I? All right. Finally, the big one. What is Pitt's record going to be this year?
Can I go last? Or second to last? We'll let Chris go last. We'll convince them.
Oh, you want me to go last? Oh.
Yeah, we got to convince you.
Oh, okay.
So are we...
Go ahead.
Are we right now selling Chris on 10 wins?
Is that what we're doing?
Or are we giving our honest opinions?
What's the difference?
Like 3 or 4 wins, Squid.
Speak for yourself.
I mean, I'll
Okay.
get, like, when it comes to be my turn, I'll give you my honest opinion, and then I'll convince you of 10 wins because
Okay,
I can make
that's
that
what
case.
we'll all, why don't we all do that? We
Okay.
give our honest opinion and we talk about how to get to 10 wins. I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
So all off season, friends of mine who aren't Pitt fans because they do not know what to talk about with me anymore. All that my adult friends know how to engage in conversation is how's the wedding planning and what does Pitt look like this year, which is fine. Those are the only two things going on in my life. But I've been telling everybody I talk to, Pitt went 3-9 last year and then got worse at almost every key position over the season, except for quarterback and offensive coordinator. And I think that might be all that matters for them to make a bowl. So I really do. I think it got worse at a lot of places that you cannot afford to get worse, but improved at the spot that's most important. Because I am certain, I would bet my life, Yarnell or Holstein are going to be better than Thayer / Jurkovic. And in the modern game of football, that's all that matters. So I think at absolute worst, if this team is a catastrophic failure and the offense doesn't take and nobody steps up on that defensive line and the cornerbacks do look inexperienced, I still think this is a 4-8 football team because I know for certain Nate Yarnell can throw for 200, can take what is given to him and throw for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns a game, which is enough with this schedule to win you 4 games. That is at the minimum.
Okay, the way you set that up, I thought you were going to say a higher number.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 is greater than 3, is it not?
When you said 4-8, I was like, wait, did I drift out and miss like some middle part where he like talked it down? Didn't you just say that the improvement at quarterback and offensive coordinator would get them to a bowl? Did I miss that? Or did I imagine that you said that?
Okay. Let me be clear. And I apologize if I was not. I'm talking about the absolute bare minimum is 4-8.
Okay.
My prediction is that this is a 6-6 football team, but they improve enough over the course of the season, especially winning. And this is my little going out on a limb. They're going to win at least 3 of their last 4 games: Virginia, Clemson, Louisville, Boston College. All right, not that big of a limb, or I guess small of a limb, depending on how you're looking at it. But this team is going to improve notably over the season. By the end of the year, everybody will be a little bit more comfortable with Narduzzi after the scare he gave us last year. And we're going to go into next year thinking, okay, we have rebuilt what has been destroyed. We've got young talent. And you know, the future of the program is existent, which is better than I can say at the end of last year by a long shot. In order for them to win more than 6 games, I do not think it will take much because this is a handy-ass schedule. It will take them being barely above average to win 7 or 8 games. So apologies for the confusion. My prediction is 6-6.
Your lead into that, you said if everything goes wrong, even if they aren't that good, I'm like, oh, he's gonna say they'll be a 6-win team even if they kind of suck. Then you said 4, and I'm like, oh, well, that would also suck.
It'd be an improvement.
Sure. So I'll piggyback off what you just said. In years past, in our previous season previews, I've fallen for the trap of, oh, if the quarterback is just a little bit better than the last one, Phil Jurkovic, Keaton Slovis, will be great. If Keaton Slovis is just Kenny Pickett light, we'll be okay. It's not easy to do. I don't think we should assume good things from the quarterback position. Same with some of the unknowns. Like the linebackers, they look great on paper. The cornerbacks, they look great on paper, but I'm snake bitten from buying in stock for things that I haven't seen work in a minute or ever in their college careers yet. But I'm going to throw it all out the window. I'm going to crumple up my hypothetical paper because this schedule is bad, and I think we will be better than bad. So we did the exercise earlier where if we have a half decent quarterback, if we have Nate Yarnell play the whole season, we're probably a 7-1 team. I think we get back there. I think we get 7 just because almost every game will be a toss-up of like who can be just slightly more competent, who can make like 1 or 2 big plays. And I'm putting my chips in the middle of the table on Cade Bell. If I'm wrong here, I'm wrong forever.
So what's
That's
the
my
number?
pep talk.
7-6?
Yeah.
Is it 7-6 or is it 7-5 in the regular season with a bowl or
7-7 actually.
7? Wait, what?
I don't know.
So
If
they're
that's
going to the
possible
ACC?
anymore. We'll go 7-6.
Yeah,
We're gonna lose
because
our bowl game.
Okay, so 7-5 regular season, they lose the bowl game.
Yeah.
Because that's an important distinction. That's actually like built into my like oft repeated season prediction this year is like because there's a big difference. I think there's a big difference between 7-5, you lose the bowl game to Bowling Green or Eastern Michigan, as opposed to 6-6, you win the bowl game over Bowling Green or Eastern Michigan.
Yes.
I
take it
there's
back.
a difference there. So
I take it back. We're gonna have 7 regular season wins, and we'll probably play a team that has like 27 opt-outs, and we'll win that game to get excited for next year.
That's why I don't like to predict the bowl games.
And everybody else in the country will see that Pitt was somehow an 8-win team and be like, oh, that's kind of weird. Then look at our schedule and our wins, and they'll be like pissed off, like, we would have won 11 of those. And I'll be like,
I don't think
nope, doesn't count. We have 8.
I don't think
Sorry,
I
you're
don't think
mad.
anybody's going to be interested enough in Pitt to go back and revisit their 2024 schedule when they're like they're going to look at Pitt and they're going to be like, oh, Pitt was an 8-win team. No, I'm not putting them in my preseason top 25. Like I'm gonna, in the ACC, I'll put them 9th. Like maybe 8th if they beat Clemson this year or something like that. So
okay, and then we'll be more mad that they don't next year. At least we'll have a little bit more ammo.
How could they be disrespecting Eli like this? I mean,
yep.
Eli's got a chance to win the Heisman in 25, I think.
Didn't they see Poppy Williams receive for 80 yards in the Meineke Car Care Bowl?
Yeah. Why isn't Desmond Reed on the Doak Walker watch list? The other day, I typed something into my computer or text or something about the Doak Walker Award, and autocorrect changed it to Dope Walker. And I was like, Dope Walker? What? I feel like that's something different, but I don't know. That's really been stuck in my head lately, the Dope Walker Award. Anyway, so what was it, 7-6? Or did you push it up to 8-5?
We'll get a good draw on the bowl game. We'll get to 8 with the bowl.
I'm also, for the record, going to 7-6 with the addition of a bowl because part of that build to the end of the season that showing improvement is a high morale bowl win against a defeated team with a lame duck coach or 30 opt-outs. So same team, Squid.
Panther playing quarterback.
Yes. Yes. Bowl season's awesome.
The best.
Yeah. No, I keep ending up right in that 8-5 range, and it's like it's either 8-5 where it's like you're 8-4 in the regular season and you lose to like a Northwestern in a bowl game, or you're 7-5 and you beat an Eastern Michigan in the bowl game. I think this team is not great, but I don't think you have to be great to win 7 or 8 games in the regular season. I think with the way the schedule is, I think their offense will just be a little bit better. I've multiple times talked myself into them winning 6 or 7 games with just Nate Yarnell level play at quarterback last year. So I think I carried into this year where the schedule is softer than it was a year ago. And I mean, I can talk myself into 7 or 8 wins without really breaking a sweat here. I could probably talk myself into 10 wins just based on like the caliber of opponents. I mean, like, yeah, it's never happened before that Pitt's gone not undefeated in the non-conference, but they should this year with Kent State, Cincinnati, West Virginia at home. Carolina doesn't have a quarterback, even though Pitt's never won down there. Cal stinks. Syracuse stinks. SMU might be tough on the road. Virginia stinks. Clemson, I don't know. That game might be like 6-3 or something like that. Louisville will be a tough one on the road. I think Braum might be the best coach in the ACC, actually. And Boston College stinks. So, I mean, there's a lot of teams on here where if you say the name and played word association, you would associate it with, like, stinks. Like, they're bad. They're not good. Cal is not good. Virginia is not good. Syracuse is not good. And, like, all this recruiting hype that Fran Brown has, that's great. All those guys, those 4 stars he's been recruiting, are playing for their high school team this fall. So let's see how you can actually coach when you don't have all these like 4 and 5 star recruits that you brought in. I think they're going to stink. Boston College is going to stink. Hello, Brian. Give me a break. So, you know, I mean, really, like,
Forgot about that.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. Like, I can get pretty easy up to like 7 or 8 wins. And like I say, I'm settling on 8-5. It feels like an 8-5 kind of team. Either, like I say, 7-5 with a win over a crappy team in the bowl, or 8-4 with a loss to a less crappy team minus a bunch of their players in a bowl.
What's crazy is looking at this schedule, and I've intentionally not looked very hard at the schedule until preparations for this episode. That 2022 team, not the 2021 ACC champion, the 8-4 regular season 2022 team might go 12-0 with this schedule. Because I am of the opinion that Clemson is going to suck this year because they never, ever, 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 ever address any of their issues in the portal.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe in the portal. So they just don't have a line or skill position players. And Cade Klubnik might just be not that guy.
Yeah.
So I could also...
case for that.
Yeah, I could. So with this team, if the offense figures it out, and the defensive line can get any push, I could easily play schedule game up to 10 wins. With losses to like SMU and Louisville.
I think all it would take for me to get up to 10
I'm not going to do it.
Having one defensive end, maybe it's Nick Matlack, maybe it's David's defensive MVP, have like an exceptional year to where we're noticing him every week wreaking havoc. I think Deion Hayes probably would have been that guy. But alas, he's not going to be that.
But he wanted to go somewhere he could win. The 14th best team in the Big 12.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Vaya con Dios. Right? I don't know. That I don't know what Deion would have done this year. I'd like to think he would have finally had that breakthrough season where he put it all together, but he hadn't had it yet. Doesn't mean it can't happen in your 4th year, 5th year, whatever it would be at this point for him, but I don't know. I think there were a lot of questions there. I think they'll miss Okunlola. I think Okunlola would have been really good.
I was more excited for him.
Yeah, I think he would have been really good. I think they could use DeAndre Jules on this team. Those
Charlie
two
Partridge as well.
Yeah, Tim Doust has gotten some pretty good reviews. I think the players are responding well to him. It seems like they like him. I think he's doing a good job. I mean, Partridge is great. There's no question about it. I mean, he recruited like all these like stud 4-star guys that they have, these young guys, Francis Brew and Jasir Whittington and Sincere Edwards. He brought all those guys in. Although the last couple of years of recruiting prior to that maybe had some holes, particularly at defensive end. Might be the kind of the reason they're in the situation they're in right now is because the recruiting at defensive end wasn't all that great over like a 3 or 4 year span. But either way, it'd be better to have him than to not have him for sure. But I don't know. I think Doust was a good hire, though. I think he'll do well.
They're lost. They're not going to be on this 10-1 team. They can watch from afar.
Hey, that's you're missing out. They're not going to be a part of the game at Louisville, which many people were calling this year's Wake Forest game. So
yeah, and Dylan also just texted in and said 10 wins. I agree as well, but he thinks we drop 1 to Kent State and then win almost all of them from there.
It's been 30 plus years that Pitt has been in a conference, and they've never had an undefeated non-conference schedule. Like, they have to lose one of these. It's you might as well lose the first one, just get it out of the way, and go on a little winning streak.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Not towards the ACC title.
No, you got to keep your eyes on the prize. The important goal, to take it back to 2018. If you're gonna you just got to set all that stuff aside. It doesn't matter what happened against Penn State or UCF or Notre Dame. I mean, you got to focus on the games that'll get you to your goal. And the goal is ACC. They never when they're breaking down the team, they're never like 1, 2, 3 undefeated non-conference. They say ACC champs. And so that's the goal. That's what you got to work for. Kent State doesn't matter. So yeah, drop it.
Plus,
drop that game.
I'd take a 1-3 start if that one win is against West Virginia. They're a little too high and mighty right now.
Yeah, but so that would be a knock to the West Virginia fan base. But would it elevate the Pitt fan base? They go into that game 0-2, and then they beat West Virginia, and then they lose to Youngstown State the next week.
It would keep me afloat, at least. I could at least say, yeah, we suck, but we beat you.
Yeah.
And they could be like, yeah, you guys suck. You only won 4 games this year, but hey, we beat you and we suck. So
it's one of the 4. Yeah.
Worse.
It's kind of like
We're
Cincinnati
only
last year.
Yeah, we're only worried about our Twitter replies.
Yeah, it's understandable. I'll be watching a game and something will happen, something bad inevitably, and I'll be like, oh god, I can't wait to read the boards read about that all week on the message boards. So that is a thought that in the middle of a game, I'm sitting there, I'm scribbling down notes, and I'm like, oh god, people on the message boards are going to hate that. And this is how we think, this is what's on our mind.
You're in for a hell of a fall between a potentially below average Pitt team and an election. Your fingers got to be on that delete button ready to go.
There's 2 options on election night. One, I could just create one thread and be like, all right, all of you people can make all of your political comments right here. Keep it here. I swear to God, if one of you posts a single political thing in any other thread, I'm deleting the whole thing. That's option 1, is create a specific election night thread. Option 2 is I just shut down the message board for the day, which wouldn't be the worst thing, depending on, we'll see how Pitt is doing in the first week of November, but it might just be better just to everybody just take a break,
Regardless of options, I am not going to be on Panther Lair the week leading up to that.
Who do they play? That's the first week in November, right? So the game before that,
SMU. It'll be between SMU and Virginia.
You're right. Yeah, because SMU's on the 2nd. That's right. Okay, so yeah,
I will also not be going to Dallas, Texas. That close to that event.
I don't think I really want to travel anywhere in the first week of November. Just stay put. Stay here in the Panther Lair offices and just hang out here. Don't really need to travel at that point in the calendar.
You got all your dark liquor. You got all the things you need. A TV, I assume.
Yeah, that's over there. During the post-game shows, I'll sit here and watch the football that's going on. Do I have anything else interesting? I got my Romero poster. I got my BBVA Compass Bowl mini helmet. It's right here.
Gotta have it.
Oh, wait a second.
Is he going to get a BBVA Compass Bowl mini helmet?
I know you probably love that BBVA Compass Bowl helmet a lot, but I'll one up you specifically for you. You recognize?
Is it the helmet that we have signed by Bengali, Kamara, Nick Patty, and I don't think a third person?
Izzy also signed it. So this.
Oh, okay. So there's actually
a lot cooler than the other.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
We forgot to get the other 14 guys there to sign it. So you guys are still here. At least
when was
part
this?
Of it. This was at the preseason golf outing we held.
Oh, nice.
2 years ago. Nice. So if you want, I can scrub off Izzy and Nick Patty and gift this to you.
Just Bengali.
Yeah.
See, now you're making me I feel like I missed an opportunity. I should have gotten Tino and Max Gruder and Ray Graham and those guys to sign the Compass Bowl helmet. Missed opportunity there. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
You guys win. I don't have any cool memorabilia. The closest thing is my cat named Kitty Pickett is over there. So
Kitty Pickett.
That counts, I guess.
That's pretty good. I mean, I don't think a cat is
was
memorabilia, but it's kind of.
It was pretty good until it really wasn't.
You can't erase history.
No, you can't. You can make it really painful for everyone trying to hold on to it.
Hey man, he's gonna kill it with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is due for an injury. Kenny's gonna come in. You know, Kenny two gloves, ready to make his take the city of brotherly love by storm. It's coming.
And this is
whenever
where
we
we
start-
got to end it. This is where we got to end it before we start talking about Kenny, because I know we could probably go another 2 hours and it will involve crying and we'll have to break out the dark liquor. So I think that this is a good logical point.
Yeah.
Before all the Kenny feelings, to say thank you, Chris Peak, for joining us 3rd year in a row. We have once again convinced you that Pitt is winning 10 games this season. And this time it's going to happen.
I think so. I think
Yes.
so. I think you guys are on it this year. I feel like
I really do.
yeah. We got
We've
close
learned
2
from our
years ago.
mistakes.
And yeah, but this will be the year. Feel good.
This
about
is the
it.
one.
Yep, for sure.
So thank you again to Chris for joining us. If you are not a subscriber to the Panther Lair yet, you should most certainly do that to learn all the things about Pitt. And lastly, hail loyal sons of Pittsburgh.